Here's an example. I'm in Vegas. I'm with my wife. This guy comes up to me and he goes, "What's up, Mr. Freeze?" I'm like, "Yes." He goes, "I'm so pop lock. I made a pop locking." And he leaves. And I go, "Did he just say he made a pop locking?" I told my wife, at the time she was my fiance, I'm like, "This fucking guy just said he made a pop lock." And she goes, "Just let's have a good time." I'm like, "I have to go talk to him." So I went to talk to him. I said, "What did you say you made up?" He goes, "I made a pop locking." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And this was in the 2000s already. I'm like, "What do you mean pop locking?
Wow.
There's no such thing. There's popping or there's locking. Are you from the West Coast?" He goes, "Yeah, I am." I'm like, "You're completely destroying the history of popping and locking. Two
That's
different
correct.
styles of dance in two different years." He goes, "Yeah, but I mixed it together." I'm like, "Well, you didn't make it up. You're saying you made up pop locking, but you're popping and you're locking." And generally, when somebody pops and then starts locking or is breaking and gets up and starts popping, isn't a really hot dancer because he doesn't have anything.
The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Flash Talks, history worth listening to. I go by the name of Flashback, and today we have a very, very special guest joining us, a true living legend in the world of hip hop culture. He's a b-boy, a street mime, an event marketer, and a promoter known for his contribution to the development of breaking. That's right. Born and raised in the Bronx, New York, he spent some of his formative years in Paris, France, before launching his career in the 1970s as a member of the iconic crew, the Rocksteady crew. After making a cameo in the hit movie Flashdance, he appeared in numerous films, documentaries, commercials, while continuing to pioneer the development of breaking. In the mid 1980s, he moved to Las Vegas, where he managed promotions for MGM Grand and directed marketing and promotions for Light Group, overseeing venues like the Beatles Revolution Lounge. He created and hosted the weekly hip hop party slide on Sundays at Taboo Ultra Lounge, featuring some of the hip hop biggest names. In 2010, he founded the Ultimate B-Boy Championship, where he continues to run across the country. He received numerous accolades for his contribution to the hip hop culture, including a dedication award from the Universal Zulu Nation, a citation of merit from the president of the borough of the Bronx, and a key to the city of Las Vegas. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze, what's going on, my brother?
Man, that beat was hype the whole time I'm watching, looking around, but I know I can't move.
So enjoy that beat. It's pretty fire, right?
Yeah, that was fire. Very
Man,
nice.
how was that intro for you, man?
That was very nice. Thank you.
Yes, yes, Bob. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Flash Talk. It's an honor to have you on the show, man. I am so excited. You don't even understand. Like, it's like I've heard about you, seen you for so long. In fact, the 30 years that I've been doing this as a B-boy, DJ, MC, I've always seen you around and never met you for face to face. Actually, I seen you in the same room, but we never spoken. I was a little kid, a little shy on the side, but man, it's such an honor to have you. Thank you for taking your time and spending a few little hours with me and just, talk about life, the stuff that you've done, your accomplishment. But first question, how you like the screen? What do you see on the screen that pops out to you?
Flash. I love the
Flash?
flash part. Talk about branding like Flash Talk, Flashback, Grandmaster Flash, anything that has to do. It reminds me strictly of hip hop. So the Flash part's very good.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So we're gonna start. I know you got places to go, things to do in
No,
your life.
don't
So
worry about it.
oh, okay, even better. Okay,
No,
cool.
let's do it.
So basically, one of the reasons why I do this show is to give you my flowers now. The fact that you're still alive with us and you can actually see everyone basically give you the flowers. So I give you this platform for brothers like yourself from your time, to make sure, pay my respect. You guys paved the way for brothers like me. You guys were the original superheroes for me. Like when I realized and I saw Sylvester Stallone and all that, and I noticed that Rocky and all of them, they were fictitious character, and I met the real superheroes that actually do crazy moves like yourself and everyone else. I was like, wow, these are my superheroes. So thank you, man. And this is the reason why I do this show. Just always acknowledge you because 100 years from now, somebody could, put in the name and they see your name and like, wow, Mr. Freeze. And they can actually see this because it's very important to always kind of preserve history. That's a very important thing. And I know you've been around since the 70s. So and before hip hop. And that's why I go into the first question. How were you introduced to the hip hop culture? And I know it wasn't even named hip hop when you got in. So I just want to hear, I want to imagine you at 10 years old. Where were you at? What was going on in your life before you saw anything?
You know, for me, I was born in New York, but I was raised in Paris, France. My mother and father, they met after the war in Paris. Um, and he spoke to my mother and said, I found out that my family is in New York. Why don't we move there for 5 years, make a lot of money, and we'll move back to Paris? They moved to New York, preferably the Bronx, to be exact, 1130 Anderson Avenue. And they never made money. We never went back. I mean, other than a vacation. So, born in New York, raised in Paris until 1970, back to the Bronx. I was raised in a predominantly Black and Puerto Rican neighborhood where that was 161st Street up the hill from Yankee Stadium. And on the weekends, there was always something going on. There was this lady that always would play her music out loud from her little windowsill, and she put the speaker there. And, people would just have a good time and dance. And it would always happen where a little circle broke out, which was exciting because I didn't know anything about it. So I'm the only little white kid that's checking it out over there. And I see people starting to dance. And at that time, they were doing a lot of the robot, movements. But there was something that intrigued me. They did what I now know as Bronx rocking. So you have Brooklyn rocking, you have a style of Bronx rocking, which is pretty much animating while you're dancing what you're doing to the person. And I was very shy at the time, but when I'd see people jump in a circle, I would jump in a circle and do my little silly things because I was just a happy kid that was excited to see this. One particular day, this very tall brother, he was dancing, and it was to a James Brown song. I don't remember if it was "Give It Up or Turn It Loose," or I don't know if that was the song because this was in 1970, so I don't know the year that the song came out. So please don't quote me where I could be making shit up. Okay,
Yeah.
it sounded like James Brown because of his screaming on it, and I remember
Okay.
this brother was doing some Bronx rocking, and he jumped up in the air. He's very tall. He jumped up so high and grabbed his knees and then went all the way down into like a laid out, just a pose, something very primitive, nothing special, but he did it so quick and swift and hit that freeze that everyone was like, wow, wow, holy shit, that was amazing. Then another guy jumped in and he started doing some Bronx rocking, and he went down on the floor and did some little moves. Now, mind you, the 6-step wasn't created at that time, at least I don't know of it being created, but he did a couple little sloppy moves into a pose. Then somebody else started to do a pose, and somebody else started to do a pose, and it was very interesting over the years. And we fast forward till we moved to a place called Marshall Parkway in the Bronx, and this was a predominantly Jewish, Irish neighborhood at the time. And there was one Puerto Rican gentleman. He was my best friend. His name was Johnny Matos. He lives in Florida now. And I remember putting out a radio, everyone sitting on the stoop, and we pushed play, and I started just doing what I knew how to do. And this is pretty much like a movie, and all of a sudden to my left, I see a bunch of kids walking up. And this is during the time when crews were just coming up in the Bronx. And they were called, I believe, the East Side kids, except for they lived on the West Side.
Okay.
They explained to me why they call themselves the East Side in case anyone's looking for them, even though they were little romper room school kids. If anyone was coming to look for them, they'd figure they'd be on the East Side, but lived on the West, whatever.
Okay.
But interesting enough, that defining moment when they came up to me, they were a couple of white kids, one Latin kid that was very light, and another brother that was a little darker. They asked me, yo, you want to battle? And I didn't know, that terminology because I was not set into that format yet of B-boy battles. Now, this is 1970, I don't know, 76, 77, I don't know. It wasn't in the 80s.
Now, was that before the Summer of Sam, the blackout of New York, or do you think it was after?
I don't know. I remember I had a paper route, and I'd get up early, and I was a kid, and when I'd see those headlines, Son of Sam strikes again, and I was in the hallways, I was petrified. I would drop the papers and try to get out the building. So I don't remember if it was before then. I'm sorry. I'd like to be as historically correct as I can, but I just don't remember. So they asked me if I wanted to battle. I'm like, sure. And at the time, I wasn't Mr. Freeze. I was Marky.
Okay.
They're like, go ahead, Marky, battle them, Marky. I'm like, okay. So not understanding how to battle, we threw in the music. So since it was a lot of them and it was just me, I'm like, you go first. So one kid went down and he was really bad. However, he was doing a 6-step. Okay.
Oh.
Never before seen that. So you understand. Then I went down and did what I knew. Then another kid came in and did something. So now we're talking about they got a little more intricate with the footwork. Then I go down once more, and all of a sudden this kid comes out. He pulls off his jacket. It says, Mr. Ed, 7 Deadly Sins. I don't know what that means, but I'm about to find out what it means. My man goes down. He does a top swipe into some footwork, into some CC rocks. He throws a couple of swipes into a neck move on the concrete, into a freeze.
Wow.
And that moment, and I'm telling you, it was full of flavor. It was unbelievable. I've never seen that in my life. And that moment, I'm like, of course, I got roasted. And everyone was like, oh, Marky, they just destroyed you. Because, the word served wasn't, that lingo wasn't used at that time. They're like, that shit was amazing. I'm like, where did you learn this? How did, I had so many questions because I'm remembering what I did in 1970 and how it evolved. Not saying it evolved from that circle that I was in there, but somehow through the Bronx, this dance was born, and fundamental basics were created, which was obvious what I saw. So I asked him, where did you learn this? And he told me, Little Lep taught me. And I'm like,
oh,
who's Little Lep? What is Little Lep? He goes, he's the leader of our crew. He's with the seven deadly sins. I'm like, can I meet him? And he's like, yeah, we'll take you down to the block. So, we exchanged phone numbers, and I still went down to where they would hang out, which was near PS 95, the school. PS9, I think it was PS 95. That was the elementary school that I was going to. So I would go there, and every time I go there, no Little Lep. And then one day, here we go. Yo, Lep is here. This little man, comes walking up, and, he had a very distinctive look. He was small, but he was older, of course. And they're like, yo, this is Mark. He wanted to meet you and try to learn some stuff. I'm like, yo, if you taught him, I'm dying to see what you do. I've never seen that in my life before. And he's like, yeah, no problem. He threw down some shit in front of me.
Oh, snap.
Right. It was so quick and swift. Now, mind you, they were basic moves, but back then, that's all there was the basics. And the people that had these basics down and put their own flavor to it, it was just amazing. You could see 10 people do a 6-step. The one that has style and doesn't have style, you will clearly see a difference and be like, yeah, there's some seasoning with this person.
Now, do you kind of remember what he did? If you could remember.
Yeah, he did. He went right into like a sweep into some footwork, did some CCs. Then he did some intricate overlapping of the feet going around a total time. And he threw a double neck move on concrete. Now, a neck move is when you throw yourself into a quick spin and out. Not a back spin, not windmills, not flares. And now, mind you, this was on concrete. So I was like, wow, I would really like to learn more. I know a little bit, but I don't know anything of this. He's like, yeah, no problem. Yo, don't worry about it. So, I give thanks to Mr. Ed for the East Side Breakers, for introducing me to Mr. Ed, and Mr. Ed introducing me to a Little Lep. And, I took to that shit like a fish to water, and I learned very quickly and made up my own stuff. And my forte was freezes, not intricate freezes, but quick stops, poses at particular times to the beat. So when I would look for a battle, as the years went on, people would be like, yo, there goes that kid that freezes. Yo, there goes that guy he freezes like crazy. And they're like, yo, that's Mr. Freeze. And when I heard that, I'm like, name now. I'm keeping that name, Mr. Freeze. Because, you're usually given a name. You don't make up your name, or somebody that taught you or whatever. In my case, it was a crowd. I made a name for myself. Not because I was a white boy, because I was good at what I did. So that's the difference. Some people would say, yeah, he was the only one that came into a Puerto Rican or a black neighborhood. No, I came in because people knew that I was coming to get down, and they wanted to see it. They wanted to see battles, just like we all did. When I knew Seven Deadly Sins was going to battle Star Child of Rock, for instance, and there was a jam in the Bronx at like 193rd and Marion Avenue, as soon as a break beat would come on, everybody in that neighborhood knew what was about to happen. You got Star Child of Rock. We got, who was it? We got Track 2, Mr. Ill. Who else was there? Sorry if Track, you're watching this. I forgot the name of members, but these were my superheroes growing up and watching them. I mean, the advancement that they had on what we were doing, like our forefathers, was just amazing. And if they could do now what they did before, even though it's still primitive, the shit is absolute flavor. So you knew when Track was there, and then you knew if Seven Deadly Sins was there, Little Lep is going to bounce out at the end. They always save the best for last. So it was very exciting at that time. It's a complete different thing, the battles then than now. not bashing it now. I'm just saying it's just two different things.
Now, back then when Mr. Ed and the East Side kids or the East Side crew, was Mr. Ed the only one down with the 7 deadly sins that you know of from all those kids that showed his gear?
Yeah. They weren't a part of 7 Deadly Sins, but they were being taught by Little Lep. He had them under their wings for sure. And in the crew of 7 Deadly Sins, there was a guy named P-Man, Muggsy. I believe it's Benny Muggsy. I'm not sure. And I don't remember. There was Wilski, who was a part of the 7 Deadly Sins, but he was more of an MC and a top style, a Bronx rocker, meaning he would up rock standing. He wasn't really a floor guy. And he was partners with Little Lep. Lep and Wilski were, best friends and partners in that. So when you knew that these kings were going to come out, it was super exciting because most of the moves have not yet been invented. And a lot of stuff was invented right there in that circle before your eyes. You know what I'm saying? So just think about standing in front of Grand Wizard Theater at a jam like we all did, and all of a sudden he takes the record and starts scratching. To us, when we first saw that, we were like, what was that? It's amazing to see the first person scratching.
So you're freestyling whatever's happening at the moment.
Exactly. And sometimes not sometimes, but back then, the music that was played, nobody jumped into that cipher unless you're feeling the music. So I could assure you the DJ had the beats going where we were able to catch rec. Excuse me. I was watching them catch rec.
Okay.
Okay. So at that time, this is like 70s. I wouldn't jump into a circle with heavy hitters like that. It was just.
So now when you met Little Lep, did you ask him who taught him or anything, or you didn't even think of that?
I'm happy you asked that because I was going to get to it. So I asked him who taught him, and he told me in his own words, Cool Sky. I'm like, Cool Sky? He goes, yeah, Cool Sky taught me. I'm like, who's Cool Sky? Cool Sky happens to have been the older brother of Wilski.
Okay.
Wilski, I was partners with Little Lep. And I unfortunately never got to see him break. I met him a couple of times, and I've even spoken to Lep a couple of years back, because now I feel he's super important to be interviewed or to be spoken to.
Yes, I would love to have Little Lep soon.
I did an interview with Mr. Ed on my little thing. I mean, I don't have a podcast or anything like yours, but I just wanted to document it.
Yeah, it was the ultimate B-boy interviews, right? You were
there
doing?
You go. Yeah, I don't know. It was.
That's pretty cool. You were doing it ahead of a lot of people that were doing this.
Unfortunately, we'll get to the ultimate B-boy if you want. So I asked Lep maybe a couple of years ago. I'm like, yo, is there any chance is Cool Sky still alive? He's like, yeah. I'm like, is there any chance we could talk to him? He's like, don't mention his fucking name. You don't need to know anything about him. Don't talk about him. Don't say shit about Cool Sky. I'm like, I'm not going to say anything bad. I'd like to talk to him. He goes, no. So that's it. He was very.
What?
He did not. So I just respect it. He doesn't want us to interview him or see it. I don't know what it is, but that's my man. If he doesn't want it, then I won't do it. It's definitely sad. So I'd really like to know.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big puzzle of the picture of what everyone is trying to solve, because
huge. I have some old school guys, I don't want to mention their names, who tell me that no, 7 Deadly Sins are from the 80s, they're not from the 70s. I'm like, I saw them with their shirts in the 70s. You can't tell me they're not from the 70s. And they are. I would love to be able to talk for everyone.
Well, just with that story that you said in the 70s, you said it was if it would have been the 80s, I think you would have remembered.
Yeah. Even some of the old guys are making shit up.
Yep. And
I had somebody who told me a story. I'm not going to say the name of the person we talked, who told me one story about him. And then when I brought it up years later, they go, what are you talking about? that person was never a B-boy or B-girl. I'm like, but you told me back when that this is where this person battled and got killed. It's like, nah, you're bugging. I'm like, okay. So it now told me,
That's
I'm like, all
interesting.
right, we're having twisting the truth. I mean, you know, the older guys, the pre-recorded guys, they weren't recorded, but that have their stories, of course, they're super important because there wouldn't be this dance without it. The problem is that we can't keep a historical story straight. Things keep changing every time it's explained. And once that happens, it's like you're being interrogated and you change your story. So now the cop knows, oh, wait a minute. Just yesterday you said this at this time, but now you're saying that. So when you start making things up, it's just
And that's just with them saying they were there and then later on they weren't. I could just imagine how deep it goes down when it comes to creation of moves. I did this move first. I did this in Brooklyn. No, this guy did it in the Bronx. No, you got it from here. And like, so I could just imagine how like difficult it is to capture this historical, I'm gonna say like a family tree. Because you just mentioned Little Lep. And Little Lep, it's like him telling you that there was someone before him. That is so important to know because what if you keep going and you ask the brother that taught him and you ask that brother
I don't
and
know.
he's going to tell you someone else, and now we're in the 60s. Who knows?
I know.
Who knows if it goes that far?
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And
But
like you said, it's important. It's very important.
well, it is, but it is what it is also. So we're dealing with the facts of what we have now. You have plenty of people that say they were at certain places at certain times in the Bronx, and I don't say anything. I'm like, I never saw you there. I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't say anything. Keep it to
Yeah.
myself. There's some people that say they made this up or they made that up. I'm like, and I know differently, or I would not know differently. There's a reason why people are talked about in the b-boy game, or a dope MC or a graffiti artist from back in the day that's still relevant now. It's because historically their significance is just overpowering everyone. There's a story for a reason. It's because they've been doing it from a certain time till now. Nobody is making it up. Now, when you have to start talking about yourself and saying, I made this up, I made that up, and it's very possible a person did, but it makes it hard to be credible for that person because he's trying to brag about himself and there's no real documented proof. And the reason there's no real documented proof is because we don't have iPhones back then. We didn't have recorders, and those that did have it had money or wouldn't record what's going on. So it sucks.
Definitely. And I know in Europe, a lot of Europeans came down and were recording. They came from the outside and recorded a lot.
Yeah.
I can imagine if so
Storm.
imagine the stuff that they have never released from New York City, from
Yeah.
yourself, from the crew, from historically. Like I could just imagine they probably do have, some of the pieces of the puzzle that could kind of make a person say, "Hey, I was there for the first Cool Herc party," or maybe you
Oh, I
wasn't.
see what you're saying. Okay. No, Storm wasn't filming then. I'm just saying when I mention the word Storm, it's not to.
Oh, you're mentioning Battle Squad sermon. No, I'm
Yeah,
saying
it wasn't
European.
to diss him. I'm just saying this man fell in love with this art form and literally left his life in Germany, came to New York, to the belly of the beast, to learn, and he was incredible. Everyone hated him in New York except for me. Everyone, because I thought he was amazing, and I still think he's amazing. Anyway,
Yes, yeah.
just to let you know about the recording, I know Storm did a lot of recording. Maurizio
Yes,
did.
he did. But what I'm saying is, besides them, like
Yeah,
Newscast and all those documentaries, and they will come out here because the majority of the British. Sometimes I go into some of the websites that I kind of like YouTube, but for not mainly in America, and you find some stuff that you're like, wow. Like when I had Maurizio, the next one on here, I found footage of him when he first literally did a competition, and he hasn't seen that since he did it in
Right.
the 80s. So it's like footage you could find that it's not available in the States because of regional, that copyright stuff. Like you can only see it in certain countries. So I know they have a lot of information. Now, around that time when you met Little Lep and then you're hanging out with him, who were your mentors and teachers that were like guiding you, teaching you everything? You mentioned Little Lep, but besides him, who else was there guiding you and teaching you kind of like this? Doesn't have to be breaking. It could be even teaching you music about rappers or graffiti or even the style. Like, who were they?
There was nobody. I honestly didn't look up to anybody. I enjoyed what Lep did, and I was always a loner where I wanted to do what I did, create what I did, or be taught by Lep something and try to give it my own flavor. But I really didn't have anybody that was my mentor. Just like I never went into a room and practiced. Everything I did was through feeling. If the music moved me, I had the right cipher, the right amount of lighting and darkness, the beautiful women watching, B-boys watching. Everything comes in play with this. The feeling is what makes you respond and get down. So for me, unless I felt something, there was no practice, no mentors. It just came out how it came out. To this
So
day,
do you feel that you were just doing it at the moment of what you felt and that's it? And
yep,
living the moment, you were so present and just enjoying what was happening.
hell yeah, I lived for it. That's all I cared about was breaking.
And now, was your mind thinking of anything about the future, or you didn't even think of that? You was just literally living the moment.
No, I never thought of that. It was just a moment. The only time there was thoughts of the future is of course, as children, we get older. And for me, I won a dance contest somewhere in the Bronx in a roller rink. That's when I started popping or doing the electric boogie. I wasn't popping. I was doing the New York style of dancing. And it's when I first met Charlie Chase and Grandmaster Caz. He was the host of he was the MC for the ceremonies. And there was a boogie boy there named Loose Bruce. He was like renowned and known all over New York. Back then he was the name, just like Little Lep or Track 2 or Spy or Jimmy D, Jimmy Lee. They were the names for breaking. Well, that man was the name for electric boogie. And I come in, this little kid, and Kaz, he asked me, what's your name? I said, Mr. Freeze. He goes, Mr. Freeze? He goes, what do you want to dance to? I said, Rockin' in a Pocket. He goes, yo, Charlie, you got Rockin' in a Pocket up there? He took the records and he stopped it. He's like, yo, if this Puerto Rican kid could get down, I'm going to eat. I forgot what he said. Eat this microphone. Or he said something crazy. So nonetheless, Rockin' in a Pocket starts a certain way, and I did some dumb shit. It went, simple little moves, but the whole place went bananas. Because, of course, they didn't expect this little white kid to do it, and they didn't expect someone to do it with flavor. I'm doing the backslide throughout the whole roller rink. I'm doing my shit. Now, granted, Loose Bruce was better than me. I did win that competition, but the reason I won is because I did something that the others never seen, and they didn't expect to see a little kid like me catch wreck. So,
wow. Now, Charlie Chase thought you were a Puerto Rican kid?
Kaz did.
Oh, Kaz.
So back to the point of the story is so when I won that contest, I remember I had money, and I was with a guy named DJ Little Charlie Chase at the time. And, we took a cab home. We were all happy. We ate at the diner, and I showed my parents. I made $150. And that moment made me feel like I can make money with this.
Mm.
The moment I started thinking of making money with it and when the crew, Rocksteady crew, when we started, for me personally, it no longer was anything fun. We're doing a show and we're going to get paid. So the rage and the fury of a b-boy attacking in the circle to show off was gone for me. And as time went on, over the years, we're trying to do a commercial and the director say, no, do the move like this. I'm like, I am doing it like that. No, put your leg more this way. I'm like, I made the move up. How are you going to tell me how to do it? The frustration of these things, it elevated it to the point where I just wasn't happy. Now, granted, I did do some shows. I was in a show in Vegas. I had a 3-minute spot with Sugar Pop. You know, we did do some tours, of course, that we loved in Europe. But it became a job. It no longer was that intimate, hardcore feeling that we used to have.
Now, was it because of all the micromanagement of people, producers, and all these telling you what to do? It kind of started taking the way it felt like a job, like you said. It's not no fun as much as anymore.
What it is, the difference in the circle and really two guys getting at each other to exchange moves, that applause from the crowd and the respect from that person that was as good and maybe better than you is extremely satisfying. And it's hard to get to that level, especially whether it's now or then. That when we would be on stage doing a show, or if there's a competition now and it's on a stage, you're not really battling. You're doing a show for the crowd to respond to you. So people will start doing corny moves, you know, because you're now in a show. It's show business.
You want to win the crowd.
It's no longer that element of fighting with someone, not physically fighting, but, you know, dance fighting. So, you know, some b-boys feel differently, maybe. I don't know. For me, I completely lost the rage. And over the years, I was in shows and I made a living with it, but it was a very difficult lifestyle. You know, I'm going to be 60, and because of my choices back then and not going to school and doing particular things to further myself in a career, to always have a paycheck, it made it very difficult for me, you know, to pay an electric bill, to pay a phone bill at 40 years old, 50 years old sometimes, because you want that easy money, minimal work, maximum pay.
And you have that artist mentality, especially if you, as a young kid performing already, getting $150, it's, you know, now it's basically $150 probably an hour just to even hire you or do things like that. But at that time, you being a performer and you have already the taste of money, it's not the same as you saying, let me get a 9-to-5 job and work 40 hours because you're an artist.
Right.
That feeling, you like you said, like you want to work smarter, not harder.
I mean, personally, for me, I'm an entrepreneur now. I refuse to work for people. I shouldn't say that because I have a dog walking service. I make very good money. I've had it for years.
Well, the way you treated your baby, Jasmine.
Yeah.
I have to mention that. That I can see already.
And that's what I've been doing up until now. It's been like, I don't know, 4 years. I think I started in 2018. My point being is, even before that, being the marketing director of the MGM and having my own nights, it's far more rewarding when you can work for yourself and build something rather than to work for someone else. I mean, everyone appreciates getting a job. A person puts in millions of dollars, they put an infrastructure, they hire people, they give them a living. The problem is the living doesn't help those people to make ends meet, especially nowadays.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I've decided now, even when I'm done with this business and I move back to Vegas, I'm going to go ahead and get a real estate license and still real estate there.
Hey,
I'm no longer working for, you know, you would say a boss. That shit's
now going back to when you mentioned you met Little Lep and you training, you trying to learn all this stuff. Talk to us about how you started transitioning into meeting the Rocksteady crew. Like, what was the story of how it came about? You getting down with them and all that. Like, if you could remember the story of how you saw them or met them.
So I did see the original Rocksteady getting down. I think it was 183rd and Creston. I forgot the exact name.
And mention some names for those that don't know out there.
Jimmy D, Jimmy Lee, Rubber Band. Um, I don't know the other members, because when I started seeing it, the dance was going out, and a lot of those brothers were either they fell off in particular ways, either moved or incarcerated, from what I heard. Maybe I don't know the exact stories, but I've always still went to jams, because when the b-boy culture in the 70s died in the Bronx, late 79 into 80s, there was still some ciphers going on whenever there would be a party in a high school or a college. And I remember that I would see at all these parties, Crazy Legs and Little Crazy Legs. Now, we're departing from the original Rocksteady crew to now second generation. Legs was given the permission to take the torch, and it became his. Before he was that, I saw him with a shirt on. I believe it said Rock City Rockers or Rockwell Association, but I'm thinking it was Rock City Rockers. So I would see him at these different functions, and I really wasn't breaking anymore neither, because I'm like, no one's really doing it. Nonetheless, we would have to ask him. We met, we hit it off right away, and we just started hanging out, because I was very much into dance, even though I didn't do it as much. And he was already an accomplished, superstar in the Bronx. And, you don't, and this is before media or any of that stuff, before us doing shows or him doing shows. It's difficult to get that street cred unless you're a drug dealer and you're giving out money. But to do what he did, for instance, or for Grand Wizard Theodore to be known as the creator of scratching, or, oh, there goes Grandmaster Flash, there's Africa Bambaataa, yo, that's Cool Herc, there's Whipper Whip and Dada Rock from the Fantastic Five MCs. There are very select few street celebrities, but during our time, man, whoever was lucky enough to be able to meet them and see them perform, their words can't express how amazing it was. So Legs and I became very good friends, and he took me into the city, Amsterdam Avenue and 90-something Street, which was called Rocksteady Park. Pardon me. I met Ken Swift, Doze, Frosty Freeze, Ty Fly, Kippy D. I met all these other brothers, and I never knew about them. And I remember watching Kenny get down. I was like, holy shit. That was.
Would you remember what year? If I know it's kind of difficult to
that was
point that year.
1980. It had to be in the 80s sometime, early 80s.
Okay.
I'll have to ask Legs and get back to you if you want.
So you saw Ken Swift and you were blown away.
I was blown away. Kenny and Legs. Look, as far as I'm concerned, in the Rocksteady crew that made a name worldwide for the name of the crew, Rocksteady crew, was built on the creators, but the people that really built it worldwide, Crazy Legs, Ken Swift, Mr. Freeze. Okay,
that's correct. I believe it.
Of the crew, we were the three dopest breakers anywhere, and especially in the world, because no one was doing it at the time. Fast forward, we had Mr. Wiggles came in. That was the boogie part. Pop Master Fable came in. They were also now the faces of it. So these people built that name worldwide. And like I said, there's a reason why there's stories about particular people, and there's people that have to boast their own stories. And that's because you either were there and historically people know about it, or you just weren't.
That's simple.
And I'm not trying to pinpoint any particular person. I'm just saying, in general, here's an example. I'm in Vegas. I'm with my wife. This guy comes up to me and he goes, "What's up, Mr. Freeze?" I'm like, "Yes." He goes, "I'm so pop lock. I made a pop lockin'." And he leaves, and I go, "Did he just say he made a pop lockin'?" I told my wife, at the time she was my fiance, I'm like, "This fucking guy just said he made a pop lock." And she goes, "Just let's have a good time." I'm like, I have to go talk to him. So I went to talk to him. I said, what did you say you made up? He goes, I made up pop locking. I'm like, what are you talking about? And this was in the 2000s already. I'm like, what do you mean pop locking?
Wow.
There's such thing. There's popping or there's locking. Are you from the West Coast? He goes, yeah, I am. I'm like, you're completely destroying the history of popping and locking.
That's
Two different
correct.
styles of dance in two different years. He goes, yeah, but I mixed it together. I'm like, well, you didn't make it up. You're saying you made up pop locking, but you're popping and you're locking. And generally, when somebody pops and then starts locking or is breaking and gets up and starts popping, isn't a really hot dancer because he doesn't have anything that you could zone in on, say, wow, my man gets down with this. You know, it's like you'll do a quick move, then you get up, you do a little wave, and then you start to lock. It doesn't work like that. You either popping, you're locking, you're b-boying.
And that's usually like the beginners, because I remember me doing that the first 3 months of me breaking, like trying to like pop, trying to lock, trying to break, like because I didn't understand watching movies or videotapes. And I'm like, I don't know what's what. So you're just trying to move and do what you've seen before in the past.
Right.
But so once you met Rocksteady crew and you immediately hit it off,
Yeah, it was fun.
how was it that you started like was this before Beat Street or after?
So this is way before Beat Street. The exciting thing with Rocksteady, when all the movie shit came out, I was already gone doing something different. What was exciting was when Legs met. Legs lived a particular lifestyle. He lived the life of hip hop or the Bronx lifestyle. You know, there's people that say, yeah, I do hip hop, or meaning they MC. That's not hip hop. That's the music industry. If you're a real MC, you could freestyle. Well, he lived a particular lifestyle that we didn't. And he would go to these clubs and he was very much into listening to new music and seeing people dance. And I don't remember the place, but he met Ruza Blue. Ruza Blue is Cool Lady Blue. She's the woman that ended up managing us.
Yep, I ended up meeting her later on in the future.
And I believe Bambaataa was performing and she was managing Bam at the time. I'm not sure of that. Nonetheless,
yeah, she was.
So she ended up doing something with, I think his name was Steve from the Roxy, and they opened up a Friday night at the Roxy, which was very exciting for us because now we had a place to go to that we could dance, listen to our music, and people started to come from all over the world to see this because you're hearing that there's this obscure dance and music that's in Manhattan now that came from the ghettos of the Bronx, and people are coming in from all over the world. Just like Studio 54 in the 70s, that was the club of clubs. People come from all over the world just to be able to get in, if they got in. And the same thing went with the Roxy. So we pretty much were Bambaataa, Grand Mixer DST, Africa Islam, Fearless 4, Cold Crush Brother, Flash, Treacherous 3. We were the superstars. So while there's a huge line waiting outside, our little asses just walked right to the front. They'd open the gates, the red carpet's there.
And everybody's like, who the hell are these guys?
Yeah. And, when you got into the Roxy, there was these plants and this graffiti and it was psychedelic. It was like you were in another world. It was amazing.
Is that how you met Peaches there at the Roxy's?
I'm glad you said that. I'll get right into that. So, what we lost in the Bronx that is no longer existing has now come to Manhattan in a way that's even better than what we had. Now people are watching us. We have our music all night long. Fable is there, Wiggles is there. And one day, if you're mentioning Peaches, which is how I saw your show, by the way.
Wow, that's amazing.
Scrolling through stuff, Peaches is a good friend of mine for years. I call her my triple OG. So Peaches was there. And the reason I remember Peaches is because she had on, I believe they were rubber gloves that she painted white. And she was, doing a lot of mime stuff and trying to do the boogie at the time. And it was interesting because I would see her there every Friday, and we became friends. I believe she was friends with Fable at first, and Fable introduced us. And she was just a wonderful woman, and she was so much into it. You could tell just to paint fucking rubber gloves that she was living it, and she was.
Yes.
All she cared about was dancing. I mean, of course, she had her life outside that, but whenever we see each other, it was all about the dance. And she also had a gentleman. What was his name? I forgot his name, but he was the chief security of Studio 54. And because of her, we'd get into Studio 54. We would dance. She would dance. I mean, she left a mark in my head because her history as to what she's done. No, she wasn't there in the 70s. No, she didn't make this particular thing up. But her history of what her accomplishment as a woman in that time to still be going on with what she does now, my hat's off to her. I love her. She did a great job, and she didn't even try. She was just living it, just like Legs lives it. Ken Swift lives it. Storm lives it. I can't put myself in that category. It actually, for some years, I was furious with my choices, and I hated hip hop. I felt like it pretty much was a big downfall for me, but that was my fault, of course.
Now, do you see any other females like poppers or B-girls or anyone else in the scene at Roxy's, or do you go to the Fun House? Do you go to 1018? Do you go to all these spots, or you were
So,
mainly Roxy's and
so
Studio 54?
the Fun House was a different vibe. That was it was more of an Italian vibe would go there. The Guidos
Ah,
would go
okay.
where they did their type of dancing. It wasn't our thing. We called them Guidos, but
Yes.
we didn't want to mess with them because those guys were no joke. There were some fighters, and they had their own way of dancing. It was questionable, you know, that
I
it was.
believe it's called kick dancing.
Yeah,
Some
it
of
was
them
like
do.
their way of dancing.
Yeah, they
So
did like kick dancing, I think
yeah,
it's
they
called
did
one of the
something like
styles.
that. And 1018, you know, that came after. That was the Roxy. So 1018 to me, I did go there once. No comparison to what the Roxy was in the 80s. None.
So
It's
you was
nothing.
Roxy's and Studio 54. Those were your two spots.
Yes, and it's a problem for me now, even socially. I was a marketing director and promoter in Vegas at the MGM Grand and the what was it, the Mirage for nightlife, and I enjoyed it because I was able to implement particular things with a friend of mine named Frank Annabelle, who actually got me to work, who's like the nightlife man of Vegas. And we were able to implement things that made us happy because it wasn't just about alcohol and sitting down at a table and standing there showing everyone you bought a bottle like an idiot. So because of because God put us in that place at that time, anything now, when I go to a club, I find it to be boring. If I see a guy standing at a table that paid $5,000 and he's holding his champagne, I just laugh at him along with
Yeah.
everybody sitting at that table because they're all clowns and bimbos. Look, I'm VIP. Look at me. I'm drinking alcohol. Go ahead, have a drink and drive.
I feel the same way. I don't go to clubs. Of
It's
course,
just
in the
not
90s I did
interesting.
it.
My point
Nah.
is, there's no interest in going out, getting drunk, and having nothing that stimulated you in an artful way.
And nobody really dances anymore.
It's
It's
over. If you don't have a table, you ain't rocking. Yeah, and as a promoter, I used to sell table to people, and we would be laughing. Yo, we just got this clown that spent $8,000 for 2 bottles of. I mean, we would laugh at them, but they're in the club like.
yeah, like living the best life, like they say, right?
Anyway, so we're myself, I'm a victim of, I guess you'd say, my success in the 70s and 80s of what I was able to see. Even in Paris, Japan, all the places we went to were hard to get into places because they just didn't want to let regular people in. It's exciting, but now for me, and even Legs, when I talk to him, he always invites me. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to sit there. We're going to listen to some music. I'm just not interested. And it
Now
sucks.
I could imagine. Now, around that time, was there any particular battle you could remember, whether it was alone or as a crew, that sticks to your mind that you always remember that battle, like early battles, like before Beat Street, all that? Like,
Yeah, I
is
got one.
go ahead, go ahead.
This was in the Bronx near Fordham Road. You go down the little alleyway into this basement. It's dark. There's smoke. There's a couple of little lights, and it was a little cipher. And Mr. Ill was in the circle, Star Child of Rock, and he always had this particular way. And I was with my boy actually, who introduced me to a lot of the old school guys. The celebrity old school guys named Rip Seven, Michael Colon.
Okay.
We were very good friends, and he's someone that's been down for a long time. And he's like, yo, there's Mr. Ill. I'm like, let's go see. So we go in, and then Little Lep jumps into the circle.
Oh,
So
snap.
granted, at that time, we knew something was going to set off. So Mr. Ill started doing something. Little Lep did something. Mr. Ill did some. Little Lep did a head spin, like his drill head spins. And Mr. Ill did some type of a movement like, fuck that. Or he did it again. And he was leaving the circle. Lep grabs him by the back of his pants and pulls him into from his ass. He like dragged him back in to make him battle. So that was.
Oh, did he battle? Did he battle after again?
He didn't, but that's what made it interesting for me to see how I remembered it, because I've seen many of battles, but none that excited me.
Nice. And I know that you've always got into the miming, the electric boogaloo, or boogieing back then in New York City. I know when I was a kid, I remember my uncles, they at the parties they'll say, hey, do the electric boogie. I didn't know what it was, but I saw them doing the waves and all that. But later on, I found out it was called electric boogaloo from the boogaloos and all that. But at that time, were you like mostly popping or breaking, or you were just dancing all style of dances?
I was pretty much breaking a lot. And when I did see the boogie, we called it, the first time I saw it in the Bronx was a friend of mine. I don't remember his last name. I feel terrible. I hope if somebody sees this, they can elaborate on it. His name was Eric, and I think they called him, I don't know if they called him Mr. Float. Well, he was from the Bronx, DeKalb Avenue, and he ended up going somewhere down south. And then he comes back, and all of a sudden he gets in a circle and he starts doing these like, I don't know how he did it, these like popping moves or jerk shoulder moves, and then he would float. We never saw that in the Bronx, people floating, and everyone was like, fuck. And then he started doing this and pulling the rope, but the way he did it, there was like a little jerk, so it looked like he was pumping.
So isolations, all those isolations.
But he wasn't popping, he was jerking, which is not popping. So I saw that, so that's what got me. It started to get me into the electric boogie. And fast forward a couple of years down the line, God, there's just so much to get into. A friend of ours named Lockatron John from Brooklyn, he's with the Lockatrons. He called us. He called me, Fable of Wiggles. He's like, yo, I need you to meet this guy. He's from California, and he's with a band called Eclipse. And Eclipse, the lead singer was Jeffrey Daniels from Shalimar. And Pete was in the group, Skeeter Rabbit, Robot Dame. Anyway, so we met Sugar Pop, and when I saw Sugar Pop actually pop, California popping and boogalooing, that was it. We were like, yo, teach me. Now, Fable was my partner at the time. Fable, he wasn't much into it. He's like, fuck that. I like our New York style.
Yeah.
I don't blame them. They were more elevated than I was in the boogie. So him and Wiggles, I don't know if it was Fable or Wiggles that were like, no, fuck that shit. We're sticking with our New York style. And in reality, the New York style, as far as I'm concerned, they might differ from how I think. It was the elementary school or the romper room school of popping. It was the beginners of popping. We didn't have it right. We're jerking our shoulders, but the Californians, their muscles, their necks, everything is popping. So we had pretty much, a watered down style because we didn't know. So for those that are New Yorkers that disagree with me, that's fine. I'm not trying to diss our dance, but it just wasn't popping. And the same thing with locking. The locking in New York was different than the locking in California. And there is no, yo, this is New York style locking. No, you either do it right or you do it wrong.
That's it.
You either rap like an MC like Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, Dot X, or you mumble rap. That doesn't run.
That's it. That's
Rappers of
exactly.
today, okay, I'm just trying to show it doesn't mean it wasn't exciting at the time for people to watch, because that's how we got known with the boogie, the electric, the boogie. But
The boogie, which is funny because if you mention back then, you say, "Oh, you do the boogie." That's how they would say, "Oh, you do the boogie."
yeah, the boogie. And
That's interesting.
yeah, they're like, yo, you do the boogie. And for a while, I got into the kick like I wanted to do every competition I can, and I would act like I was from California. I remember I bought this black satin. It said Hollywood, California. And I would do these dance contests that were in Manhattan. For some reason, they were doing it, not Breakin, and I would win them. And people would like, where are you from? And I'd go, LA.
That's
I can't believe I did that. So, if I might, just so you know who John Christian is, Locatron John.
he was one of the rhythm technician, right?
No, yeah. Well, I don't know if it's meaning with Wiggles in them.
Yeah, like he got down with rhythm technician when they did that music video that Wiggles is rapping.
That's very possible, but I know him. So Locatron John, Stephen Christian, was from the Locatrons. Locatrons. That's what they call him, Locatron John. One day, I see him at United Skates of America in this brown, sparkly suit, and he's doing the boogie, and he's moving really slow. And all of a sudden, he pulls out an umbrella and turns and starts walking against the wind. And then the umbrella goes back, and he starts doing the backslide. Not a float, backslide. I'm like, so nobody else cared. I mean, people were mesmerized, but in the Rocksteady crew, no one was really giving a shit. But I was like, yo, John, is there any chance? Because to us, biting is a big no-no, especially back then. Times are different now. But then again, he didn't make it up. Mimes have been backsliding for 100 years in Europe.
Yeah.
However, I need to give this credit, and I always do, even when I did the interview with Flashdance with the New York Post. I'm like, is there any chance I could use that move? That was amazing. I've never seen anything like it. He's like, yeah, you could use it. I didn't make it up. I just, took the umbrella and went backwards with it. I'm like, thank you. So, of course, we have the movie Flashdance, and years later, I see John, and he goes, hey, Mark, I want to ask you something. Come here. I'm like, yeah. And he's a funny character. He's very funny. He goes, I want to ask you something, Mark. I'm like, yes. He goes, when you asked me to do the backslide with the umbrella, I'm like, yes. And I told you yes. I said, yes. He goes, I didn't think you were going to do it in a major motion picture where everybody in the world thinks you made it up.
Oh.
And I said, first of all, John, nobody thinks I made it up, because the world does know that mimes existed before this.
Yeah, you had Shields of Jarnell. You had all these other brothers. They were doing
he
it,
said it as a joke. He wasn't really bothered.
Nah, but you know what? He was right, because everyone that I've known that's seen it, uncles, family, they know about Flashdance. They always say, oh, Mr. Freeze with the umbrella. Mr. Freeze with the, which I want to show you that right now. Boom. That's Normski, right?
That is.
Yeah, keeping the volume low so I don't get the copyright strike, That's so amazing.
You know what's funny? I got a pin on my leather jacket, and that was a pin of my girlfriend at the time.
What?
Yep, Jackie Matos.
That's awesome. Now, this was one shot, or you did it over and over and over and over, like in every movie?
Shot. They
look at that
dance, they
front
filmed
guy.
it from a distance, and look how sloppy it was. I was sticking to the floor.
But still, that was so epic. Just watching that.
And it's interesting that they used Jimmy Castor bunch, Just Begun, because I was the one that brought that tape in the cassette. It was Treacherous 3 Love Rap with Spoonie G and Just Begun. And one day, that's how, and we were shocked when we were watching it at the Broadway premiere that they were playing that. Some years later, we did this thing at SOBs that Legs had hooked up, and Jimmy Castor was performing. And I'm like, holy shit, that's Jimmy Castor. Oh my God. I was very excited. And I wanted to tell him that I'm the one that brought his cassette. So he was asking, what would you guys like to hear? And I'm in the other room going, just begun. And all night I'm yelling, just begun, just begun. And he actually got pissed off. He's like, can you please stop saying that? I will get to it.
Oh, snap.
And so at the end, he finally did it. And at the end of his set, I shook his hand. I'm like, I'm so sorry, Mr. Castor. I'm the one that kept yelling, just begun. I just want to tell you something. He goes, what? I'm like, I was in a movie Flashdance with my crew. I'm the guy that did the backside with the umbrella. And your song is in that movie because I'm the one that brought the cassette and played it. He's like, oh my God, thank you so much. I'm so excited to hear, because he didn't know. He didn't know.
Look at that. You put his song on the map globally. Not on the map, but globally.
Yeah, I was so proud of that. For him, you know, I mean, it was, because who would have heard that song otherwise? A very obscure select group of people that would listen to that type of music. Great music.
And till this day, people always think of, let me tell you, it's like subliminal messages, certain songs that kind of remind you of certain things. But every time, I don't know, this is just my story, because I remember being a kid watching Flashdance. And when I saw that scene, I didn't understand what was going on. But the song, I remember some of my family members, they got up and they kind of started going like this with their hands. I didn't understand like what my uncles are doing.
Very exciting to see that.
He got hyped, and then he called, I forgot what he called it, but it looked like the up rock at that time. And then years later, once I got into breaking in the early 90s, I revisited the movie again. When I heard it on a cassette tape, the song, I was like, man, I've heard this before. But there was a picture in my mind, you with the umbrella, because it was the nostalgia of the movie.
Yeah.
So till this day, every time, I don't know, this is just for me. Every time I hear Just Begun, you're the first person that pops up in my head with the umbrella. And I try to relate it to breaking. My friends get crazy, but it's just like, just because of that little scene right there.
Yeah.
It stood out so much. And I don't know if you know, I'm a closer magician. I've been doing this as a kid. So I like all the stuff with miming, magic, and stuff like that. So when I saw that, it looks like an illusion. Right. So for me, I thought it was magic.
Yeah, I hear.
In fact, years later, late 90s, I got on this off-Broadway show called Break, the Urban Funk Spectacular. It was kind of like a mock-up show of Jam on the Groove. And there was a brother by the name of Roger G. I don't know if you know the brother. He was the skater that did the moonwalk on the Bad video.
Okay, I was thinking of that. Got you. Yeah.
You know that guy? Yeah, so I ended up touring with him. And then one day we're doing the show. And I don't know, maybe it was just like me being so naive, being a young kid. I'm in the backstage and I was a tumbler. I was just power moves. And I see him getting ready. He puts his skate on and he's fixing his umbrella. And in his umbrella, he turns the umbrella over, puts a bunch of glitter inside the umbrella, a lot of glitter. And I'm like, what the hell is this man going to do? So he does his Michael Jackson impersonation. He has the face with the white mime, which Jabberwockies end up later on doing the white mime face. And
it's a mask.
Yes, the mask. And then he's doing the whole thing, and out of nowhere, boom, he pops the umbrella, and the skate takes him backwards. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm with the guy that did the movie Flashdance. That's what I thought immediately. Right. So I ran up to him. I said, yo, Roger, do you do Flashdance? No, that was Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze? What? Like the superhero Mr. Freeze? No, this is a dancer, Mr. Freeze. Oh, wow. And immediately Honey Rockwell runs to me and goes, you know Mr. Freeze. You met him last time. His name is Mark. You know him. And I'm like, who? Yeah, with the little dog. Remember you kept talking about the dog? And I go, Jasmine, right? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, he was the one that did the umbrella. I already saw you in real life, and I didn't even know it was you. So
Right.
I tripped out to that. And now that you're mentioning that this was even before you, and even before Lacatron, John, I could just imagine where it all started. Like just that illusion itself, because
Yeah.
that 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 is like a staple to the history of hip hop. Just that little clip. In fact, if you're on the phone, do you know what's called a GIF? A GIF file. If you're on your phone and you're gonna send a GIF file, if you put umbrella dance, you pop up.
That's funny. That's
Yeah,
funny.
immediately that boom, it shows up immediately.
If
And
I,
I don't know why I picked that up, but I remember seeing that. I was like, oh man,
that's
that is so
interesting.
awesome that on every keyboard you're in there.
Let me interject for a second. What is very interesting is you said, in hip hop. For myself and a lot of other purists, I guess you would say there's only four elements, and I don't like to mix popping and locking in hip hop because it has its own origins, its own roots, and it comes
Correct,
from the
correct.
other side of the United States. So I don't consider it a part of hip hop. It's a great dance. It's somebody else's dance. But even the West Coasters will tell you, no, that's not hip hop. That's whatever it is during the funk years of California. I
So
don't.
how do you feel about Brooklyn Up Rock? Will you consider it still part of the breaking thing or no?
Oh,
Because
no,
I know that right now they're claiming it as like a separate dance. All the old school guys that are coming back from the dead, they're
I
talking
agree with
about.
them. I agree. I don't consider Brooklyn Rockin'. I'll tell you something interesting about that as well with Brooklyn Rockin'. I consider it as something separate from hip hop. It has its own history, and I believe it's pre-hip hop. It was born before DJing, doing the Cool
The
Herc, doing the merry-go-round,
turntablists.
the scratching, the MCs, the B-boys. The top style rockin' in the Bronx came before B-boying, and Brooklyn rockin' came before that.
Which
But,
is amazing.
I mean, if they don't, it doesn't matter if you want to call it a part of hip hop or you don't. But realistically, it does have its own separate history.
But you know, there's a group
And
on
it's
one side
worldwide,
that, yeah, yeah. So it's a big group that feels that rocking is part of breaking and part of the whole hip hop. Some people even feel popping and locking is, and not pop locking, but popping and locking
right?
as part
Part
of
of
hip
hip
hop
hop.
too. But it's something like you said, it has its own history. And I do honor and respect it as that because I've met a lot of the brothers that were like one of the I'm not gonna say creators because I wasn't there, but that's been doing it for a long, long
Right,
time. You know what I'm
right.
saying?
I mean,
So now, so yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
it's fine if you want to. I've gotten to a point in my life because, some years back, I was extremely vocal online. Let's call it negative and assholish and jealous, even, where I was coming after people because I felt that my years before them mattered as to what I said, and that nobody could come in and do things unless we agree with it. And honestly, I was completely wrong. So we have two ways of looking at things. So let's put it this way so it gets a lot simpler. We have breaking in the Olympics now, right? So there's some people that say it shouldn't be in Olympics, and there's some people that say it should be, and it shouldn't be. I've spoken to both sides. They've asked me my question. They're like, that shit ain't right. It ain't this. It ain't that. I'm like, well, listen, if you don't want to be a part of it, then don't be a part of it. If you want to go into the basement jams and that's what you enjoy, then that's what you should do. I mean, if they want to have breaking into the Olympics, I personally am very happy about it because it's
So
recognized.
is that your personal opinion of breaking going to the Olympics? Is that exactly how you feel?
Yeah, I the Olympic Committee has flown me out several times. I've met with them. They've asked me questions, opinions on what to do or not do, or they were just thought, and I'm sure they did it with other people too. Now, I think that breaking the Olympics is fantastic. They have the X Games with skateboarders and rollerbladers. I mean, why wouldn't it be in the Olympics? So when I did speak to the committee, I explained to them that you have the power to make this dance where everybody in the world is going to respect it, or they're going to watch it and say, oh, look at those kids spinning on their heads.
And that's it.
So he asked me, so what do you mean? I said, every creator of the dance, the DJs, the graffiti artists, the MCs, the people that took photos, the videographers, everyone that documented it is still alive. So you could do an amazing montage on the history and the story of it and show it before the competition so that everyone could be like, oh, wow, these are some grown people that actually were watching these kids. And these kids are actually super creative and intelligent because the whole world does it now. So you could do it that way and be extremely informative and build it up to some amazing where people will be like, wow, I got to watch this. Or you could just do nothing and they're going to think that we're just kids that spin on our backs and that's it. So I said, it's up to you guys. So don't fuck it up.
Now, what would be your opinion in the moves? Like style, freezes, originality, power moves.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant what I think and what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. I personally feel that there shouldn't be one-on-one. It should be 4 guys minimum, 5 guys, so they could feed off of each other, so they can, you know, there could be some fire and a little rest and a little reaction. That one-on-one is just super boring. This is my opinion. That's how I feel.
Are you going to be involved with the Olympics at all?
I'm so involved in it that people that think they're involved in it have no idea at the level of what I'm going to be doing with it. Contract signed and everything. I mean, you know, I'm an original B-boy. Je suis français. And I'm French.
That's it. Say no more.
I am the first French B-boy. And not only that, I have a photographer that took photos of me from 79 to 82 in Paris when I was a kid. Wait a minute. This is in 1980. Hold on. This is in 1982 in Paris. So
you know what I'm saying? I saw highlight you. That is
let me show you something else. Hold on. So here's enough. Let me move this out the way. Oh fuck! What was that? Hold on.
So and remember, you can send these pictures, and I'll show it on the screen.
I'll send it to you. So this guy's name right here.
Yeah.
Philippe, I'll send it to you. Where's my hand? There we go. Okay, there. Well, this guy is the one that took the pictures, and he was just a young man. It's just a young man that just happened to have been taking photos, and I became friends. Sorry,
man. That picture is so historical.
Young man, I was just randomly taking photos and captured something. 40 years later, I get a Facebook
what?
A Facebook request telling me, hey, Mark, I'm the one that took photos of you. You slept at my house when you would come in the summertime, and we did this, and that. And he sent me some pictures. I'm like, oh my God, Philippe, how are you? And he just actually sent me all the negatives.
Wow.
I mean, I've got like 62 different negatives of
man.
Myself.
You did you cry when he sent you that, man? I would have started crying, man.
Oh, just hearing from him was amazing. And we did a gallery showing in Paris just a couple of weeks ago. I had them blown up, and you know, we put it in this great gallery. It's in the Marais in Paris. Anyway, that's
is that I remember seeing something recently that you were like in a gallery. Is that where Benji was at?
Yes, that's it. And that was the place. And my thing now is to try to get these photos in as many galleries as possible. And
wow,
get famous with the Olympics. And if I pass away, maybe my daughter could sell them at Sotheby's and get some money.
Man, congratulations. It's so beautiful to see that. And I always get so happy when people get rewarded because you've been putting the time since the 70s. And like you said, that you felt like you were being negative. everyone goes through things in life and situations, and the most beautiful thing is I love the stories of redemption. I always love the stories that, you left, came back, and you put a mark again, even if you weren't as consistent as others, like you
Right.
said, but you still here, brother. And that's the point, because you got brothers that did so much in the 80s, and you will ask them, hey, they don't want to be involved. They don't want to know nothing about it. They just want their life the way it is right now. So I commend you for that. You're still hanging in there, and you're inspiring a lot, because even myself, I question, and me as an entertainer, an entrepreneur, a business owner, I think about it like, how did these guys do it back in the day? And when I hear your story and you're telling me you're doing entrepreneurship type of things like walking dogs and all that, that makes me happy, because you're doing even things that you love doing, just even if it's just a dog.
Sure.
Like, yeah, so that's so inspiring to hear, because I read a lot of books, and they say that you're supposed to have 7 streams of income in 2023 now to live a good life. Which is, I imagine, are you in New York?
Yeah, I am right now. Yes.
Yeah, so I imagine that New York City, you have to have 15 type of gigs.
Yeah. And I'll tell
You
you
have to.
something. Yeah, I've been wanting to speak on it. I could even start it on your show.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
That B-boys, B-girls, dancers, the dance community is very difficult to make a living, just like it's difficult for actors to make a living. So they become waiters. I feel that we already have a blueprint. I'm sorry. So I feel as dancers, we already have a blueprint with what's going on with the reselling of Jordans, for instance, or what hypees wear. A particular T-shirt that somebody worn, and for some reason it was $12, but that shit is now $1,300. I feel that the B-boys and B-girls and the promoters should get as many flyers as they can from past events. They should get T-shirts from past events. They should make their own T-shirts. Make a limited run of 10 T-shirts if you can't afford it. Number it, sign it, give it away, trade it. So right now, of course, there's not going to be a stream of income coming, but eventually it'll build where people are going to be like, holy shit, did you see that Storm T-shirt from 1984? I'm trying to get it. Someone's selling it. If they're doing that with sneakers and other T-shirts and hats and bullshit like that, I believe that the B-boy or the dance community within the culture of hip-hop should do that. I
So
do
it's like,
runs of 50 shirts, and I put them out there, and I don't sell them. I give it. Well, I'm in a position where I could give them. I want to give. And I hope that one day, if I do become famous within, the housing of the culture of hip hop, and I'm looked at as a world famous B-boy because of the Olympics, that people will be like, holy shit, there's 50 of those shirts. I got to try to get one.
and I believe it's gonna happen, Freeze. I've had dreams of just so many beautiful things that's gonna happen in France, and um, I am so excited. I'm part of this. I don't know if you ever heard of this organization. It's a nonprofit called Child of This Culture, and that's Candy, Cindy, they're B girls from Flora Angels. It's a B girl from Florida, and they created this nonprofit called Child of This Culture. We work with the kids, and I'm basically considered the passport of hip hop, of kind of guiding the kids, of
Good.
teaching them the 4 elements. And France, being that my ancestors are from there, there's a little village called Saint Hilaire, which is my last name. And I am dying to go out there for the Olympics, and plus to visit some of my ancestors. So I will be there with you, man. So if you're out there next year, we're going to be hanging out.
On these
Hopefully,
things for sure.
yes. And it's going to be beautiful. And you were mentioning trading and all that. Will you consider as like playing cards back in the days, trading comic books? So you're looking at it as the same way as, like you said, the Jordans.
More
People
like
sell
the Jordan.
Jordans now.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, of
And,
course, we don't have that many people that would be interested where someone could open a store, but there's plenty of resale stores with t-shirts that cost $300, $400 because it's a Travis Scott t-shirt. You know, it might cost $14 retail, but being that Travis Scott put it out at his concert, it's worth X amount of dollars. I think, you know, there was a great, for years, Cross One did and he still does an amazing event, freestyle session. He's been doing
shout out to Cross One,
There
dope brother.
Speaking of Cross One, he's the one that came up with the name Jabberwockies. I'm sorry, is it the name or the font of the Jabberwockies?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, but I've never heard of that story. But that's
No,
beautiful.
I've heard the story, so we could find out. But
that's awesome.
Incredibly talented and has done a number of things. So we're just talking about that because of the Jabberwockies. But he must have old T-shirts from Freestyle Session. This is vintage stuff. He must have flyers. Same thing with who was Speedy Legs and Zulu Gremlin. They did an called the Pro-Am. I didn't go to it for years, but you know, they have their legacy in what they created as well. There should be flyers from that. We should find the T-shirts. It's super important to get as much memorabilia as we can from this stuff and collect it. Same thing with even Battle.
How about VHS tapes? VHS tapes.
Whatever you can get that has to do with this culture, it could be super interesting. Crazy Legs was ahead of his time with the VHS tapes. He started the whole thing called Bootleg Betty. It was called. It was a great name.
That's right. I have some of the Bootleg Betty tapes.
There you go. Well, that, you know, if ever you see Legs, ask him to sign it. That'll give it more value eventually one day, maybe.
I think it's gonna happen after the Olympics because it's gonna blow up. I was talking to this there's a dude around my way that he used to do the X Games as a skateboarder, and I was mentioning to him about breaking going to the Olympics, and he couldn't believe it. And he literally said, "Wow, do you understand what's gonna happen to breaking after that?" And I was like, what's going on? He's like, well, I remember when it happened to us, the skaters. After, nobody wanted to pay attention to skaters. Skaters would be outside. Cops called all the time, you know. But once it went to the Olympics, everyone and their mama wanted to buy skateboards. Everyone and their mama wanted to do anything that had to do with skateboarding. They want to put their kids into skateboarding because it wasn't the Olympics. And I believe that after the Olympics happens, even during the Olympics, it's going to get so saturated. Every hip hop dance school, every dance studio is going to be like breaking, hip hop or whatever. It's going to get crazy. According to the brothers that already did this with another sport or another type of thing like skateboarding itself. So I know that if you're playing part of it and you're in it, if you have a little, what do you call those little toys? You have a little Mr.Freeze toy.
I actually I did have one made with the umbrella.
You did?
You want me to show you?
Oh my God, please. Come on. That's amazing.
Hold on.
Wow. You got it with the umbrella. That is so official. How long you've had it for?
These are things I'm going to have to send you separately.
I'll pop up.
This was done by Notch 56, a graffiti artist.
Whoa.
So I'll send you that stuff separately. So is that okay?
Oh yes, that is some.
So that you can.
Yes, and I'll add it to. What? And I thought you were gonna show me something like this. So you asked him to make it for you, and like you saw the brother because he does a lot of really dope ones.
Yeah, I did see it on Instagram, and I hit him up, and he told me it would take about 6 months, and he finally was able to do it, and it got done. It was a year of going back and forth, but I paid him whatever he wanted. I didn't give a shit because when I do my interviews, that statue will be right next to me for the Olympics thing. So
that is official.
I just wanted to get back. So we were talking about the Olympics when you were talking about dance studios. So the pros in the Olympics is that, yes, you could open dance schools like a martial arts school. You could have the grandmaster of who created what, meaning this teacher learned from this guy from this disciple to the other one to the other one, just like, you know, the Gracies with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu,
Yes,
with the
yes.
UFC. So there's going to be so many revenue streams that we'll be able to make money with, whether it's the clothing, the branding, the person himself opening a store, opening a school, making an app, the B-Boy maybe being sponsored by American Express. You know, I had a conversation with a very kind and smart man. I don't know if he would want me to mention his name, but you know, he is uplifting. His name is Stephen Graham. He has Silverback, UDEF, and he's pumped a lot of money, millions of dollars for years for the B-Boy community. It's not to make any money, just like BC1 Red Bull. They put on these events, they spend millions of dollars. They don't make money off of that. They're doing it for the love of the culture. And Steve explained to me, he goes, Freeze, you need to be more this rather than that, which it resonated with me because my pontification of bullshit on the internet over the years, how I acted, it either brought people with like, I love what he says because he tells the truth. And yes, I do tell the truth. I am opinionated. My problem is the way I did it. It's that old saying, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And he was right. He's like, you need to speak differently and you should be more supportive of this because otherwise, when this happens, you're going to be left in the lobby and you're not going to go upstairs to the VIP room. Those were his exact words.
Wow.
And I remember when he told me that at first, I was like, I was still resistant. And, you know, as time went on, I'm like, he's right. He was super right. He doesn't give a shit. He does what he does. He doesn't need Breakin. He's pumped so much money to help the community. And, you know, people would bash. I would bash.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Stephen Graham. He's the man. He's been doing it for a while. I've never met the brother, but in a couple of the shows that I've done, I've already mentioned him because some of the guests have mentioned him,
He's
and
a
I always give him
super smart man.
his yes, man.
Super
And I know he
smart,
does
super
stuff with
fun.
like Urban the action figure, like somewhere in Colorado.
Ivan.
They have,
That was Ivan. He was my roommate for years in Vegas. He was in the show Splash. Yeah, he's very close with him. Yeah, that man did some amazing things. There's a lot of people that have done some amazing things for the culture, but he personally has pumped a lot of his own money. And most people just don't do that, especially the rich. There has to be a return. And
definitely.
his return is that he loves what he does. And I found out a lot of information from him. He did come down to the Bronx back in the early 80s. He was friends with Mr. Wiggles. I mean, he's legit.
Look at that. And then he saw an
mentioning
he saw
his
the
name.
opportunity to give, and why not give to the people that he
Yeah.
truly loves the most?
Yeah,
That's a
he
beautiful.
really, you know, people give in different ways. There's different ways. Some people don't have the money to give, but they'll do it in another way. So he's the one that told me about that. Don't be left in the lobby. Get to the VIP room. And
I like that. I like that.
right. You know, I met a gentleman named Jean Laurent from Switzerland. It was his dream, he told me, to have Breakin in the Olympics from when he was a kid, from when he first saw Breakin. Now, if you'd see this gentleman, he's not a breaker or anything, but it's something that when he first saw, he was mesmerized. And now because of him, he is the one that was instrumental in pushing this to make it happen, to be in the Olympics.
Well, shout out to that man because
I'm very with him who introduced me to the people of the Olympic Committee and to the people that give the licenses to be able to do particular things with the Olympic for Breakin in the Olympics. So super wonderful man, Jean Laurent. And let's go even further. You know, there's a lot of people that have there was a problem with it with the judging system, and I would bash that too. And truth to behold, Storm from Germany, Battle Squad, and a gentleman named DJ Renegade from London. They came up with a system that I've looked at now, and holy shit, they did an absolutely amazing job. It took a while to get it right, but what goes into making a judging system is not as simple as somebody would think. All right, you got to do your freezes, you got to do this, you got to do that. No, there's so much more involved in it. I saw a full description of it, and Storm did a great video who simplified it and explained it on, it was either on Facebook or on Instagram. And they too had a dream to get Breakin in the Olympics. And me as an original B-boy, I never even thought of some shit like that. And I thank God that these people have dedicated their lives to this, because of what they have done and their dreams. Now B-boys and the next generations to come and their children and grandchildren, if they get into this culture, they're going to have another way to release, you know, some stress and start dancing or make money with it because of their dream.
Now what's what's something? Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, and Michael Holman, who was managing the New York City Breakers way back then, he was talking about breaking in the Olympics. B-Boy Action, who's the leader of the New York City Breakers, he thought of it too. And I didn't even know that these brothers were way back when instrumental in trying to get this going to where it's going now in 2000.
I just had Michael Holman on the last episode.
Oh, was he on? That's nice.
Yes, yeah, man, Michael is so well spoken, and he's like, I was blown away by.
Also. Go ahead. He's super kind.
Oh yeah, man, and I was talking to him, and I did not know all the stuff from like Jean-Michel Basquiat and all that, the whole grave, the band, just the story. I was like, what? And Club Negril, putting down Rocksteady in there and all this stuff, like none of that I heard about. And it was he's a dope brother, man. I really appreciate him with all the information, the stuff that he's done in the past. So now I have a question so we can move on. In the current state of hip-hop culture, what is something you would like to change?
There is no hip-hop culture anymore as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
I don't see any real jams or anything.
Unpack that.
I mean, where do you see that there's a jam going on with graffiti MCs, real turntablists, and B-boys, unless if you go to a freestyle session or you know, any of these B-boy events. The four elements, let's talk about the MCs. They don't exist anymore. It doesn't matter who sells millions of records and how many diamonds in their mouth. Those aren't MCs. They're called mumble rappers. So I don't see any MCs. I don't see any turntablists anymore doing things because everything is with the computer and CDJs. There's nothing wrong with it if you're a club DJ, but you're not really what's his name? What's that amazing DJ's name that's really Qbert.
Oh, Qbert, yeah.
You're not a Tony Touch, a DJP.
Jazzy Jeff.
A Jazzy Jeff, a Jazzy J, you know, you're just not in that category. Nobody is doing that. So that's why I say that there's just.
You would say it's focused on just the breaking aspect, like not the full culture. They're focused on just the competition tournament style type of thing. Is that what you're saying?
It is yes. In the United States, hip hop, as far as I'm concerned, is non-existing anymore. Maybe people are going to say that I'm crazy. It doesn't exist. However, in Holland, in Paris, in London, in Germany, in China, in Japan, that shit is on, and it's done correctly.
And why do you think is that? Even in our own backyard where it all started in New York, the love in New York City, even the city doesn't even support. Like, shouldn't they be giving grants like the people in Korea, these governments, and like what's your thought on that? Like, being that it started here and the support is not 100%.
Well, because see, in the United States, it's just different. The frame of mind, it's all about money. If you let me get really simple. We sit in a chair at a restaurant. If the chair breaks, The manager comes out, everybody's worried. Are you okay? Do you need an ambulance? And why do they ask you that? Do you know why?
Go ahead.
Because they're afraid you're going to sue them.
Yep.
If a chair breaks anywhere else in the world, nobody's afraid to get sued because it just doesn't exist anywhere else. We're a society driven by strictly money.
Wow.
And being that this culture came from the gutters of the Bronx, made its way to Queens and Brooklyn, and we might not have the look at the time of what America, would want to see on TV, or the government would sponsor and give grants. It just wouldn't work that way like it does in Europe. Over here, we teach breakdancing. Oh, he's a street dancer. In France, you're un professeur du break. You're a professor of breaking. You're a professeur de this. You learn from this person. It's so different how things are set up in comparison to here.
Now, what is some?
My opinion.
Go ahead.
That's
What
just
is some? No, but that's fine. What is something you can contribute to the culture to make it better? And I know you've contributed a lot, but what is something now, if you could, if you could think of something now that that you could contribute just to make it better? The fact that you just mentioned that there's no culture like that anymore.
Well, we have an opportunity, and it's in the hands of the Olympics. Look, just a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, and it infuriated me. What was it? The 50th hip hop anniversary? It was on TV.
Yeah, that's.
Remember? So there was a brother that was rapping, which he was dope, by the way. I'm not sure who he was.
Yeah, that was Black Thought.
Okay,
amazing,
amazing. And then all of a sudden, in the background, you hear. Who should have came out? The Rocksteady crew.
Exactly.
Who came out? The Furious Five. There's nothing wrong with the Furious.
Well, not only that, they had like some mock-up choreographer dancers imitating B-boys.
Oh my
in
God.
the side.
So
and
bad.
I'm watching this and I'm like, who are those? But I could tell, as a B-boy, you could tell if they're beginners or if they got taught certain things. So
Yeah,
I see them on in Adidas suits and they're just backup dancers to whoever they were there. And I'm like, what happened to all these B-boys? Like,
so
there's thousands of crews.
So here's my point. So the only people that has the power to do this worldwide now, and not just the little 50th anniversary show that they completely destroyed because it wasn't a hip hop thing, it was just a music industry thing. The Olympics have the power to make this worldwide where everyone will love it and respect it, because all the historians are still alive and creators. I can't contribute to it other than being in it, just like everyone else can, but they have the power to make that happen. That's how it could elevate it.
Well, your voice is powerful, so I believe the contribution has to do with your truth, your experience, your history, just educating brothers, the new generations.
Well, to us it does, but maybe, people won't want to hear it unless it's presented a particular way, and they can do that.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's going to stay the way it is. Here, come and spin on your back over here and clean the floor. My mother used to tell me that.
Now, do you feel that the Olympics can make it or break it?
Well, they can't break it because, the culture is always here. It's never going to go away. There won't be jams, hip hop culture the way we used to see it. It'll just be a competition of an MC or a DJ or a graffiti artist who now, like a Futura 2000, who ended up going big time with Louis Vuitton and doing all types of stuff. It's not a full, conglomerate of all four elements.
So you feel like the party scene, because I know back in the days in the 80s, and even when I got in the early 90s, there was still a party vibe that you go to a block party, people are throwing down, the DJ's there, you got people, aerosol arts making shirts of, graffiti letters and just the community aspect of it. Do you think that's missing a lot now, like that party vibe? Because I'd imagine, you mentioned the Roxy's, that was a place that you called it home because you got there and you saw everything, you felt everything. Do you feel that's what's missing?
That's missing, and when we used to go to a place, whether it was a block party in the summertime and it's hot and sweaty, or it's in a club at the Roxy, our whole vibe was not to just dance, but to meet girls, unless if we had our girls with us. And our whole thing to go out was to look fresh. We had our Pro-Ket 6 Burgundies, Pro-Ket 69ers, and if it was the summertime, we had our Burgundy BVD nylon with the BVD Kango, or, you know, it was always a fashion show going out. That's why we had the belt buckles. You know, I contribute, I think hip hop and cowboys go hand in hand. Original hip hop. We wore our Pro-Keds, our Pumas, our Adidas. They wear their boots. We had our nameplate belt buckles. They got their belt buckles. We had our Kangos and our caps. They wear their hats. They have a particular uniform that they wear that we know what culture they come from.
Yeah, you're like, that's a cowboy for sure. That's a cowboy.
And now, and back in the days, we knew who a graffiti artist was. We knew who an MC was. We knew who a DJ was, and we knew who a b-boy was. Stick-up kids, you know, used to dress fresh. MCs always carried their microphone in a little bag. Even if they weren't going to go to a jam, it was just to show off that they were MCs. Graffiti artists, they had paint all over their shit, or they had their Lee jeans with the, you know, it was spray painted, their name, and on the back of the Lee jacket. And the b-boy, you just knew he had his hat to the side, he had a particular look, particular sneaker, one pant leg rolled up. Speaking of the pant leg rolled up, have you ever seen that? People wearing with one side of their—
I don't see that anymore, unless it's somebody from your time that wants to fit the part, but I don't see that anymore.
I do see it a lot. I even see sometimes people just lifting up one pant leg because it gives them a good look. The reason it was done originally back in the days in the 60s and 70s is because in the Bronx, people didn't have money and they would find bikes and they would take particular bikes and put them together and make them in choppers. And at that time, we all wore bell bottoms. So most of the bikes you would find, there would be no chain guard. Okay. So what they would do is they would lift up their bell bottoms so that the chain didn't get wrapped up with the bell bottoms, and it became a style. And you would wear your red Pro-Keds with your red tube sock stripes on one leg. And it stayed like that over the years. And to this day, when I see somebody pulling one pant leg up, why would they pull one pant leg up and not both?
Well, now it will be a trend. They don't even know why they're doing it.
Right. And now I'm telling you where that came from.
Which is amazing. So meaning you don't want the oil of the chain to dirty your pants either.
Exactly. Well, you don't want their bell bottoms. You don't want them to.
Oh yeah, it'll get stuck. Yeah.
Back then they would just get stuck.
I heard about the baggy pants sagging is from jail with the pockets out. I heard that story.
Yeah,
they say like,
shit,
yeah. So that I've never heard of that story. That you just said why they had the pants up. That's so interesting. Now, do you feel like there's a lack of respect for the elders in the hip hop culture, meaning in the community? Like, and when I say the elders, I'm talking about anyone from your generation before you as well.
I don't know. I don't know. I've never had a problem where I can't speak on that because I don't know how other people would treat it. I've never encountered that.
So you don't have no new generation b-boys or b-girls disrespect
they might not even know me. I don't know. If I'm invited to a jam and I would be a guest, not that I do any of them because I simply can't, and I'm not going anywhere for bullshit money. Then I'm sure the new generation would be like, wow, and you show the photos and you tell the stories. I don't see anyone going, fuck him. They would want to talk to you and say hi.
Definitely. Now we're in 2023, and it's been how many years you think you've been in the game? And when I say in the game, I'm saying even that you went out of the game, came back in. Forget leaving. Just think about overall how long you think you've been in this.
Well, I'm a representative of this, this culture, this dance, up until now, until the end of time. whoever created whatever they created, they're a part of it. It doesn't stop.
Now, if you could go back to being a little kid again, what would you tell yourself? And I'm talking about, you remember that kid we mentioned earlier, that 10-year-old, or before you met Little Lep, when you were at the stool chilling? With what you know now, let's say you take a time machine, you could go back to the past and talk to little Marky. Hey, Marky, and you have the knowledge you know now.
Yeah,
And little Mark knows that you're the future Mark.
right.
What will you tell yourself?
You know, that goes with the saying that youth is wasted on the young. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
because or if I knew then what I know now, I mean, everything would have to do with securing a financial future for myself. And now that I've had a child, or with anyone I'm with, because I struggled for quite some years, and finance, money is super, super important. If you can't make a healthy living, it's very difficult to be smiling all the time, because you're constantly trying to figure out how to keep your head above the water. So I would definitely have gone to school. I didn't have the brains to go to college, but I would have walked dogs sooner, or been a promoter for hotels much sooner, is all I can tell you.
So you
I
would tell little Marky, hey, go to school. Don't get caught up in whatever. Go to school. Finish your degree.
Go to
Like,
school, yeah, because even though I did the marketing and promotions for the MGM, that's a big ass hotel, billions of dollars. I thought I could come to New York and I'm gonna get a job, no problem. Every place that I applied for, I wouldn't even get a response. And my wife at the time, she told me, she goes, "You're filling out an application for something that you need a bachelor's for." So I told her, and this is me talking now, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I go, "What is that?" She goes, "You have to go to college, and then you got to get a course and get your bachelor's." I'm like, "Well, can I buy it online? I mean, who cares? People go to school, they have a certificate. It doesn't really mean anything." She goes, "No, you have to have that in order for them to even get you into the interview to see what you've done in your life." So it was a harsh reality for me to come to New York, that I was so successful in Vegas, making $30,000 a month, and all my people that were working for me, under me, like Ben Stacks from Knucklehead Zoo, who's now with the
oh,
Jaguars. I gave him a job.
okay.
He was
Ben.
pulling 1,700 a week as a promoter. I gave all my friends jobs, and even though I was there for so many years, and I have that portfolio of stuff, coming here to New York meant nothing. Just like going to Vegas, if you have a degree, nobody gives a shit. Just make sure that you could perform.
And the reason why I'm asking that question is because there could be a kid that was your age that is thinking of not going to school or not doing anything, just breaking, and they hit a mark in their life, 50 years old, and they got to look back and be like, why did I just do all this for either nothing or something? Because we don't
Yes.
know where the future goes,
I have a child, she loves singing, theater, acting, and she's like, "Papa, I want to do this and I want to do that." I'm like, "Yes, I understand, Muffin, but that's not guaranteed. You have to go to college." She has a very sharp mother who works in finance, and works for the right on Park Avenue. I don't want to say the company, but it's a giant company. She's super smart with numbers, and it's
Amazing.
important for her to go to school to get some of the knowledge, or at least to get a degree, or graduate from college, so that if you do want to go into that space, that at least they'll look at you. I'm hoping I'll become a millionaire and she doesn't have to worry about that shit.
Yes, that will be amazing, and hopefully it works out that way. How old is your daughter?
She's 16 now.
Nice. I have a 27-year-old daughter. Yeah, man. So that's my only one, and you only have one girl, right?
Yes. And to my point, even though I do well with my business, I'm still, I'm sorry, I'm still constantly worried and wondering at almost 60 years old because I know what I do is not going to stay because I want to move. It's just not going to stay. I have to figure something out, which is why I figured out I'm going to take a real estate course and become a realtor because I know I could sell ice to Eskimos. I'm not worried about that. So that would be something exciting for me. But I am always worried. What if it doesn't work out? What if another company comes in and infiltrates on what I'm doing now? What if I get upset and I get violent? Then they throw me out. You know, there's so many factors in it where you can lose your business.
Well, hopefully it doesn't go there, but talking about that, being upset and all that, what is something people seem to misunderstand about you that you've heard over the years that you feel people just misunderstand you?
Well, yeah, like I said, I was very vocal online. It's the only thing we could talk about. And the way I delivered things, I think people saw me as a big mouth asshole. And they were right. It's
Now,
unfortunate because I tarnished what I've done in my life, which was positive in the world and for the culture. And all I did was blab online about people, which took away from that and just had me as Mr. Freeze, the angry guy.
okay, so it's that kind of like looking at the old school bitter guy. Do you feel that people saw you that way?
Well, a lot of people definitely did. What I said was valid. And
But how you said it wasn't valid.
yes, I should have contacted them separately and talked to them in private and convinced them like I could convince an Eskimo to buy ice.
Now, do you squash it? Is it over already?
Oh my goodness, I have apologized to everybody.
And how you feel about that right now?
Well, this happened some years ago. I mean, nobody made me do it. It's just a
No,
real.
but I'm saying how you feel. Like how's your peace right now with that?
I think they have more peace. If I think about it right now, I'm very, how could you, I'm bothered. It's something that being that I'm an artist, so my feelings come out a lot more. I'm just very bothered. It's something I have to live with for the rest of my life.
Well, I think you need to forgive yourself, brother, because if you
Well,
already they already forgave you, forgive yourself
yeah,
and
they
let
did
it
it
go.
right away. They did do it right away. But it's like saying it might be a little extreme. It's like saying, I'm sorry that I killed your daughter. Yeah, I forgave myself. I came to terms with what and I didn't stop and I did it for years. And when I did speak with them, you know, they some of them were like, Freeze, it's okay. Don't worry about it. They were all fans of mine, and Crazy Legs would tell me for years, stop doing that. These guys are your fans. Why are you doing that? I'm like, shut up. I don't like the way they're doing this and doing that. So my point is that when you do things in your life, and even though you apologize and you know you were wrong, you still have that reality that it sticks with you. It's stored away in a little dungeon somewhere, and sometimes it could just come back, and it sucks
Yeah,
that.
we're always our worst enemy. That's for sure. We're always going to be our worst enemy. But I believe that, you're approaching 60. I have a lot of elders, and I'm gifted that I always listen to the old school heads that kind of like guide me and tell me, man, don't think that way, because I could be perceived also as an asshole if I want to, because I am a very vocal person and I express myself from the heart. Because what happens is when you're genuine with people and you just love what you do and you're passionate, and then you see other people kind of, you feel that they're tarnishing it or something is bothering you, and your passion comes out in your own self. You don't feel like you're being that way until someone calls it out and says, yo, Freeze, calm down. So I believe that within yourself, if you let go of it, meaning with you, because those guys probably, they're not even thinking about what you did or what you
I
said in the
know,
past.
but I'm not neither. I'm just because we're talking about it right now. But I still did it, and it bothers me how I did it.
Well, this is your time for redemption since the day that you actually apologize to them or whatever. And things are, it sounds like they're going good. You're going to be in the Olympics next year. You're doing so many things. So I think that this is the time where we all see each other. You know, we all mess up sometimes, and it happens, and we're all human. So we just got to keep it moving forward, and
Oh, for sure, for sure.
that's it. That's all we can do. You know what I'm saying?
You asked me, so I just wanted to give you my honest answer.
No. And I appreciate that, and I love your humbleness because you know you don't get a lot of. I interviewed Ken Swift here, and it was a little difficult in his podcast when I interview him, but not everyone is going to be as humble as yourself, and I admire that because you know being that you've done this for so long, and you could talk to a person that's from the generation from the early '90s and speak the way you speak. I admire that, and it's not easy. Not a lot of heads do that, and it's something that you need to commend and look at it and say, hey man, this is pretty dope. So yeah, so besides that, moving on to like all your once you did the movie and Flashdance and all that, do you consider it like that you became a celebrity or your mind wasn't even thinking of that? You were like, oh, I made a movie. Now everybody's like, oh, you were in that movie. Do you feel that celebrity feel or no?
No, because when we did the movie and we came out on Broadway and the press was all over us, we knew that, you know, maybe for our peers that saw it, they knew it was us, but we knew once we left the theater, no one's going to recognize us. It's not like we had a historical, amazing part in that movie, which is what made the movie.
Yes.
But no, our faces really weren't there. You understand? Like Crazy Legs. So Crazy Legs did a historical thing besides the street scene. He doubled for the dancer.
For Jennifer Beal, yeah.
He doubled for Marina Jahan. Okay. Marina Jahan, the dancer, who's a French jazz dancer, doubled for Jennifer Beals. He doubled for her. So we were both brought out.
Oh, wow.
Paramount Pictures to do some moves, and we weren't sure what it was for. They asked me to do my neck moves because I did them really quick, and he was doing the windmills. And I guess from what I saw, he ended up getting the part where he wore the tights and he had to wear the hair. And I'm sure knowing Legs, he's like, sure, I'll do it, but I'm not doing it for this much. You're gonna have to pay me to do that shit.
Well, anybody, I wouldn't do it if I have to put those tights, which is funny. I just
come on, you got some in your closet. Come on.
On the weekends, only on the weekends.
That's what I'm talking about.
But I saw the World Star Hip Hop podcast that you came out with Legs about 2 weeks ago, and you guys had me laughing, man. And I was so excited. I was like, man, I'm gonna get to interview him one day. And it's funny because you just showed up out of nowhere. I was like, oh. Because I thought it was just Legs
thing, and she's my friend, so I was like, "Well," I watched her thing. I'm like, and I hit you up. I'm like, "Great work." I'm not one to be like, "Can I get on your show?" You asked me, so I'm like, "Sure, why not?"
Thank you, man.
Presentation and everything. I hope that.
Yes, because man, I love this so much, and I fully live it, and I'm trying to just stay with this. And
I could tell, and I hope you get plenty of viewers and likes and everything, and that I hope that you can flourish off of this.
Thank you. I appreciate you with that. Now we're coming to the end of the show, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you your full screen, and I want you to let everyone know what are you up to these days. Where can people find you online and connect with you? So, my brother, take it away.
I want to thank everyone for watching. If you ever want to get in contact with me, I'm always live and watching my messages on Instagram, Mr.Freeze 1970. Live your life right. Follow the scriptures. Believe in God. And if you don't, do the right thing and love your fellow human being. Just be nice.
Awesome. And any shout outs? Any shout outs to anyone?
Shout out to God for giving me my life, my daughter, and all the beautiful people in my life. Let me shout out to one more person that's really special in my heart right now. Marcos, my man, my brother from Florida. Thank you for all the help.
Okay, there you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Mr. Freeze. I go by the name of Flashback. This is Flash Talks, history worth listening to. It's an honor, Freeze, for you just taking the time from your busy schedule to just sit down and have a little chit chat with a brother from the 90s, you being from the 70s and the 80s. And I honor this interview, man. And it's one of those interviews that, like, I get so excited because I would never thought I would sit down and talk to you like this, man. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much
for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Peace out, y'all.